Born Harry Roger Webb on October 14, 1940, in Lucknow, India, the boy who would become Sir Cliff Richard began life amid colonial elegance and simmering political tensions. His early world was one of privilege. His father, Roger Webb, worked for the Indian Railways, and the family enjoyed company housing in Howrah, near Calcutta. But as the curtain closed on the British Empire in India, the Webbs packed up their lives and, in 1948, journeyed by sea to England aboard the SS Ranchi. What awaited them in Tilbury, Essex, was a world apart, a modest council house in Carshalton, North Surrey. Young Harry's new reality was distinctly working class, filled with the struggles of post-war Britain. He moved schools frequently, from Stanley Park Juniors in Carshalton to King's Road Junior in Waltham Cross, before finally settling in Cheshunt. By the time he reached Cheshunt Secondary Modern School, the seeds of his creative spirit were already showing. Gifted a guitar at 16 by his father, he immersed himself in skiffle, the gritty, homespun music popular among British youth. It was the first true turning point. He formed the Quintones, a vocal harmony group, before stepping into the spotlight with the Dick Teague Skiffle Group. Then came the transformation. Harry Webb became Cliff Richard, and with the help of rock and roll impresario Harry Greatorex, he adopted a new stage name, Cliff, to represent the edge of rock, and Richard in homage to Little Richard. Backed by his newly formed band The Drifters, later renamed The Shadows, he recorded his debut single Move It in 1958. Initially intended as a B-side, the song quickly eclipsed its A-side, climbing to number 1. 2 on the UK charts and drawing praise from the likes of John Lennon. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, Cliff Richard was the embodiment of British rock and roll. Hits like Living Doll, Travelin' Light, and The Young Ones came in rapid succession. His boyish charm, slicked hair, and polished performances made him a national heartthrob. With The Shadows, he delivered not only radio hits but also cinematic magic in films such as The Young Ones and Summer Holiday, each a box office triumph that solidified his position as a leading man both musically and on screen. But the wave of British music was changing. As the Beatles rose to dominance in the mid-1960s, Cliff Richard's sun-soaked anthems began to feel part of a vanishing era. Yet, rather than fade, he evolved. In 1964, a profound religious awakening led him to embrace evangelical Christianity. This spiritual rebirth presented a personal and professional crossroads. He nearly quit the industry, doubting whether he could reconcile his faith with fame. Friends urged him to continue, and he found a way to align his career with his convictions. Though the landscape was shifting, he remained relevant, delivering softer ballads and gospel-infused pop hits like The Day I Met Marie and Congratulations, the latter almost clinching victory at the Eurovision Song Contest in 1968. His forays into American markets met limited success, but in Australia, South Africa, and across Europe, he retained a devoted fan base. When the Shadows disbanded in 1968, Cliff pressed on, embracing television with his own variety show and experimenting with film, theater, and gospel recordings. By the mid-1970s, some critics had written him off. But in 1976, a revival came. The album I'm Nearly Famous unveiled a rejuvenated Cliff Richard, more confident, vocally nuanced, and musically adventurous. Devil Woman climbed to number 6 on the U.S. Billboard charts, finally giving him the American recognition that had long eluded him. He followed with We Don't Talk Anymore in 1979, a song that would become his biggest global hit. The 1980s ushered in a second golden age. Tracks like Carrie, Dreamin', and Wired for Sound kept him squarely in the UK top 10. He collaborated with Olivia Newton-John on Suddenly and joined Sarah Brightman for the soaring All I Ask of You. He even entered the realm of musical theater, starring in Dave Clark's sci-fi musical Time. In an industry notorious for fleeting fame, Cliff Richard was a fixture. The late 80s saw him claim the Christmas #1, one spot with Mistletoe and Wine, and again in 1990 with Savior's Day. His 100th single, The Best of Me, was released in 1989, making him the first British artist to reach that milestone. In 1995, he was knighted, becoming the first rock star to be so honored, a crowning achievement for a man who had long straddled pop music and public morality. Throughout his life, Cliff Richard kept his personal affairs intensely private. He never married, and his relationships, including a much-discussed romance with tennis champion Sue Barker, were the subject of intense media scrutiny. Friends and family filled the emotional space that a spouse and children might have occupied. His Christian faith remained a constant, guiding both his philanthropy and his artistic choices. Even in his later years, he refused to coast on nostalgia. He experimented with jazz, soul, and swing, releasing Bold as Brass in 2010 and Soulicious in 2011, each a fresh take on classic genres. In 2013, he released his 100th album, The Fabulous Rock and Roll Songbook, a nod to the music that first inspired him. Controversy reared its head in 2014 when his Berkshire home was raided by police amid unsubstantiated allegations. Though never arrested or charged, the public nature of the investigation dealt a heavy blow. His eventual exoneration did little to erase the emotional toll, but he emerged from the ordeal with dignity, securing a legal victory over the BBC for their coverage. Despite these trials, Cliff Richard remains a vital force. His 2018 album Rise Up marked a symbolic and literal rebirth, charting well and earning praise for its honesty and defiance. When he took the stage at the Royal Albert Hall or sang Summer Holiday at Wimbledon in 2022, it wasn't just nostalgia that filled the air, it was admiration. Though still very much alive, Sir Cliff Richard's legacy is already sealed. He has sold over 250 million records, garnered every major UK music accolade, and remained a constant presence in the public consciousness for more than 6 decades. His life has spanned empires, genres, and generations, a career shaped by unshakable resolve, moral clarity, and a voice that has never wavered. If the day comes when his voice is silenced, there will be mourning not just for a singer, but for a chapter in the cultural history of Britain itself. Sir Cliff Richard is not merely an entertainer, but a marker of time, of how one man's journey can reflect the changing face of music, faith, and fame. His songs live in jukeboxes, family memories, church halls, and neon-lit arenas. He is, and will remain, the boy from Lucknow who sang his way into the soul of a nation.